Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Unconditional Surrender, me, myself, and I playthrough of the main event. Game is published by GMT Games, designed by Salvatore Vasta. We are about to embark on the second half of May 1942, the Western Allies and Soviet responses to the German May 1942. As a quick recap, the weather is clear in the mild and clear in the warm zone, or fair, I guess it's called, not clear. And it's still rain, snow, whatever you want to call it. It's still nasty in the cold zone. By the new weather rules, just as a quick recap, those same weathers cannot be there here when June comes up. So they'll flip around. So like I said, we're in May. Next turn's going to be June. It will be a clear weather turn in the cold zone. So the Russians have to kind of think about that when I get there. This time I'm going to do it in order. I'm going to actually do the Western operations first like I'm supposed to. Last time I just went straight to the Russians and totally forgot about the British, knowing I was going to do a massive attack here in Egypt to kick them out of Egypt. And so I had to do them after I did the Russians, which kind of seemed funny, but it really didn't affect anything because the Germans had used their tanks marker in the attack, so it wasn't available for defense here anyway. This time it is, so things are going to be a little bit different here in the West. One of the things that the British are going to do here is they're going to take this this dude here. There's a third convoy. He's going to get moved to 31, which is 1. That connects to the Arabian Sea, which is 3 more, so that's 4. And then 5, 6, 7 into the Western Indian Ocean. And they take a sortie for that. I keep adding sortie markers. Dummy. Dum. Here, it goes up by 1. And then the first convoy, which has 1 sortie on it, the airplane, second RAF, is going to activate. Nabbit. So he activates to be moved by a convoy. The first, that one that had -1 sortie, the first convoy, he's going to do the transporting. So he goes 3 into the Arabian Sea and 4 to 31 and just goes ahead and lands at Suez. And that gives him an extra sortie. I'm not going to add a marker. I'm going to actually make it go up. And the airplane sortie goes up by 1. So now I have 2 British airplanes. 2! Count them. 2 British airplanes. Oh, you know what I forgot to do at the end of the last turn? I forgot to give the Americans back their 2 sorties that they used because they get their replacements free. So just forgot to do that. I just reset that right now. There's always something I'm forgetting, it seems. I just missed that even in my editing. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and take this airplane and put it up on 5442 along with its sortie, so it'll go up to 4 sorties there. I want to have airplanes available for as many attacks as I can get off. So, having set my stage, so to speak, now I'm actually going to try and pull off the attack. I wonder if I should do it that way. My head says to do it this way, so the Western Desert Forest activates. There's my national tracks. 1, 2. So he's got 18 left. And he goes 1. I should just make that go away. He goes through the gap back into 5441, then to 5440. Or he could go across the ridge. It's 2 either way. And then 3-4 into 5539. So he has 6 left, and he spends 2 for an attack on the Germans. So he has 4 movement points left. The Germans start at +2 because they're German. The British start at +1 because they're British. And then we go to combat commitment. This is what I was talking about with the Africa Corps. I really want to stymie one of his attacks to try and prevent this 1-2 punch. If I can stop the first one, get an AS on it, so much the better. So the Germans are definitely going to go into combat commitment and commit their tank. And the British, just the way it works. They will, this airplane will go up by 1, and they'll throw in their tanks marker. And so both sides throw in their tanks markers. I mean, it's just sort of a given thing that you have to. When you're playing solo, you have to just logic it out. I specifically stated when I was doing the German turn, I'm saving the tanks marker for use, on the attack here to try and even it up. Because the British go up +2 for an airplane, +2 for their tanks. They're up to +5. The Germans, by throwing their tanks marker, are up to +4. So if the British can roll relatively low and I can roll relatively high, I could actually get an AS and just stop this whole offensive in its tracks, so to speak. They still have the BEF, but then they, hopefully I can hold them off a little bit. But that's what we have to do. So, the British roll. A 2 + 5 is a 7. I have a chance here with the Germans. What do I roll? A 1 + 4 is a 5. So a 7 to a 5, I believe, is a diamond. And here I was expecting dramatic results, a DD for the British or something, or an AS for the Germans, and it was kind of like a blah. Okay, we had a turn, we had a fight there. I think, sort of, maybe, kind of, possibly. Who knows? Excuse me, clear my throat. So that didn't work. The British were going to go ahead and spend another 2. Oops, I'm not. Go down. So they have 2 moon points left. They really want to push the Africa Corps away. It's kind of the whole point of this exercise, and it's not working. What do we do? I don't know if I want to commit everything to try and make him go away. I was trying to get. Nah, we're not going to commit the other tanks marker at this point. I'll save that for the BEF because he'll have lots of attacks. So at the right time, I'll use the tanks marker, I think. So we're just going to go in at +3. We're going to use an airplane, though, to +2. It's not the greatest advantages, but I'm just looking for DRs here. We'll use the guy in the back here that I just brought in from West Africa. Run him up to 5 sorties, and then have the Western Desert Force attack again at +3. 4 + 3 is a 7. Gee, that number looks familiar. And then the British, or the Germans, roll a 3 + 2 is a 5. That looks familiar too. 7 to a 5. It's a star. And so the British will spend their last 2 and run this one up to 5 sorties. So both airplanes are at 5 sorties. For that +3 to +2. And the British roll. 5 + 2 is a 7. They're stuck on that number. And the Germans roll a 5 + 2 is a 7. That's a diamond. So that was it for the Western Desert Force. The flanking maneuver did not work. So now the BEF goes, let me show you how it's done, son. They will go ahead and throw in an airplane here and their tanks marker so that they'll be +5. I was kind of waiting to see if I was adjacent to Tobruk, I might have used it to push him away and give me an isolated attack on Tobruk to try and take him down a step. But that didn't work, so we're going to activate the BEF. We're going to use up our tanks marker. Just try and get a good attack here off. So they're next up on the block, so to speak. And like that. So we're +5 to +2. 5 + 5 is a 10. That's not bad. 5 + 2 is a 7. That's almost as good. 10 to a 7. Haha, we did get a DR, so using the tanks marker mattered. And the Germans will retreat to 5338. The BEF, oh my goodness, if I take the hex, I don't have a supply line for the BEF. I didn't realize that. Oh my. Yeah, that was a completely wasted thing. I did that in the wrong order. So here's a lesson for you, kids. That flank attack I had with the Western Desert Force was the wrong thing to do. I should have attacked with the BEF, because I could have attacked 5 times in a row. And if I get a retreat route, then the Western Desert Force could have moved over the ridge to negate. Oh, that's a fort, though. He'd have to come out, so I would have a supply line. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and take the hex. I still had 8, so now I'll have 6 movement points, because it cost me 2 to do the first attack. Now I'm doing the second attack. I'm going to use the airplane one more time, so that I'm +3 to +2, and then I'm out of airplanes. It's +3 to +2 on the Africa Corps. Hey, it's not a 7! Yay, I got an 8 instead! And the Russians and the Germans go, yeah, I got an 8 too. So that was nothing. We're down to 4, and I can only be a +1, but +1 to a +2, I might as well just try just to see if I can do something. I do have a supply line because the guy in Tobruk has no zone of control, so I can have a supply line to 5440, 5440, I guess that is. So the guys I'll be in supply for this turn, and then next turn, depending on what they do with that Tobruk fort. Yeah, okay. So +1 to +2. I'm a 2. He's a 6. I think that's stops my attack. Yes, the attacker stops. I had a 2, and he had a 6. 2 to a 6. Whew, it's an AS. I was afraid I lost a step there with an AA, but I didn't. Now, technically, the Italians could leave Tobruk and run down this road, chase my airplanes away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, could go all the way to the Nile. Problem is both the BEF and the Western Desert Force are in supply, and the Germans would not be able to move into Tobruk. You would have to probably try and do a sea move to put somebody back in Tobruk. And I have a fairly competent navy here that could very well stop that sea movement. With both of these guys still being in supply, I would be able to run one guy down and pin the Italians into an isolated situation, having chased off my airplanes with my guys in Alexandria and Cairo. And I would pin the Germans from being able to occupy Tobruk and defend it. So I could very well end up with one attack killing the Italian and another one taking Tobruk. Just by movement. So while I could do that with the Italians, it's not really the long-term defense. We're trying to hang on to Italy to sometime in 1943. At least that's the way I look at it. Italy is good for keeping the British busy in 41 while I'm in Barbarossa, instead of them doing, silly things, invading places that I might want to be. So I'm taking a chance kind of with the British. If the Italians really want to do that, I'll deal with it. It's not going to be that big of a deal because my guys will be in supply and I'll be able to kill that Italian unit, I'm pretty sure. I have to do my supply for the Western operations, don't I? Okay, I've got 4 units now I have to keep in supply. The BEF, the BEF, Western Desert First, and the 2 airplanes. So that's going to be 2 on the Americans, and then 2 on the second convoy in Port Said, so that I'm kind of at even numbers with everything. What's it not doing? Oh, I activated it. Didn't hit S. There we go. Alright. So that takes care of supply down here. I'm not going to fly the British bomber with 4 sorties because it's not very effective against a full-strength German fighter. It'll just run me up to 6 sorties and I won't get through, so I'm not even going to try. Not this turn. Maybe next turn when I have 2 sorties. I'm not sure yet. So that's the end of that. We're going on to Soviet operations. They don't have very much because it's cold weather. They did lose that unit, so they don't have their 3 hex attack down here in the south. So I think we're going to do a couple up here in the north. I don't have anybody flipped, so I can... what am I at, 24? I'm at 24, I need to save 12, so I can activate 12 points worth of infantry. And I do have like three hex attacks to do. So I'm just going to highlight the units. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Oh. 3. So that's 9 points. I'm just kind of doing this quickly because there's no point to being too awful finicky about this. I might move a couple of... I think I'm going to move another infantry unit here in a minute. But I'm just going to do the assaults from top to bottom. I have on my faction card 2 tanks markers left. I'm probably going to use one on this one to try and... That's kind of an important hex to me. And I'm going to use one on this one because that's an important hex to me. So the Germans do have no airplanes that can reach. So cool. All right. So I don't have to worry about German intervention. So there'll be a tanks marker over here. This tanks marker will be on this infantry here. So we'll just resolve them from the top to the bottom. The Russians start at 0. This is the guy that's attacking not across the river. And then they get +1 for each of their buddies. Boom, boom. And then they're -1 for the weather. And they're -1 for the swamp. This is sort of a shot in the dark attack. The Germans have a +2 defense. And so we're just trying to roll well and have them roll low enough to make me get a retreat. Just trying to take away good defensive terrain from the Germans. So I roll for the Russians, a 3. Plus nothing is a 3. And the Germans roll a 4. Plus 2 is a 6. A 3 to a 6 is an attacker stop, which it's an assault, so who cares? If I'd rolled really well with the Germans, if I rolled a 6, I could have gotten a step. So that was taking a chance with the Russians, but I got production points to rebuild the steps, so I don't really care. Here, this one's a little different because I'm going to be -3. -1 for the river, -1 for the forest, and -1 for the weather, forest, and river. It's lots of minuses. And I'm only starting at like +2. Because there's no guards in this one. Or not guards, shocks in this assault. So, I'm at +2. I threw in the tank to be +3, and then I'm -3. -1 for the river, -1 for the forest, -1 for the weather. So it's that same desperate die roll. I'm not that worried about it. I rolled a 2. That's not gonna hack it. And the Germans rolled a 1, so I was afraid if they rolled a 6, I would have lost a step. But it doesn't really matter. And then down here in the south, let's do this right away. Put the tanks on the tanks marker. And then towards the south here, around Briansk, this is the more important one. The primary is going to be the shock army. So he's +1 to start with. Germans are +2 because they're Germans. And then he adds in a shock army buddy, and in poor weather they add +2, just like an armored unit. And then this guy over here, because I put a tanks on him, he's treated as an armored unit, so he adds +2. And then I have to subtract 1 for the weather, and I have to subtract 1 because he's in a forest hex. And I'm not going across the river. So, not too bad, not too shabby. +3 to +2. It's a little better than what I've had in the past. The Russians roll 2 + 3. Of course, if the Russians could roll dice, that would be much better. That's a 5, and the Germans, a 4 + 2 is a 6, so nothing happens. So, much ado about nothing, as the saying goes. Put the Russian tank marker on there. Did I forget a Russian tanks marker? Oh, no, it's on there. It's buried under some British ones. Yeah, there's nothing else for me to do. I was going to move one other infantry unit. I moved the 27th ahead by a space. It's just better to defend in front of a city than behind a city because you can retreat into the city even if it's in the enemy zone of control. So that was my other production point there that I was going to spend, because I really don't have 15 points to spend this turn. I only have 12 in my replacements phase. And if I'm really paranoid, I could actually build a couple infantry, but I know what I'll be doing. Yeah, I get the Germans moved. The Germans eliminated that this turn, so I'll get that next turn. Might have to build an infantry just to make sure the line is secure with a back up, because the shock will be a couple turns before it gets home. So I'll probably build an infantry or two. Okay, that's the Soviet operations phase. No supply phase. There are no supply markers. No supply markers on anybody. Replacements phase for the Axis, they have 16. So they'll be spending 15. Did I do the supply right for the Axis? Can't remember. Did I run that up? Yeah, I did. So this one's going to come down. Oh, wait a minute. Do I need to bring him down this turn? 15 I have, right? That's 12 in the... Got to do this for 12. So that's 12. I have 3 more. But because I put him in supply, do I really need the sorties off the... I think I need the sorties off the convoy, because I'm going to need to keep the infantry unit in supply. So I'm going to take him down 2. I really don't need this aircraft sorties right now. I have an airplane in Germany to try and slow down Bomber Command. That's the best I can do at the moment. The Italians, they're still stuck at that 12, aren't they? Yeah, so they're going to go... They're going to do their airplane. So that's 3. And they're going to do this convoy. That's 6. And then they're going to do this Navy for 10. And there's nothing for them to build mobilization-wise, so they lose 10. They're still at 2. The Germans are at 2 as well, because they used up all of theirs. Okay. 2 or 1, I can't remember. It doesn't matter, they don't have anything to build. So, Western replacements. Well, this is kind of obvious. The Americans get theirs back. I'll remember this time. They get theirs for free. Let's see, how much do I have? I have 16 left, huh? Oh, that's one of the moves I forgot. Sorry. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Back up to the operations phase. They would have moved. Would I have moved him in? No, it's clear this turn. Which means it will not be clear next turn in June, right? I have my weather effects right. Right, it will not be clear in the warm zone next turn, so that's when I want to move this in. So I did it right. I thought I did it wrong. But it won't be clear down here in June. So yeah, here's 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to drop the bomber down 2. So that's 10 of my 16. That leaves me 6. So it's like 2 3s or a fleet. I really don't need to do the fleet this turn. So let's see if I can do 2 3s. I could clear up a bunch of my convoys. Or I could clear that fighter up north in England. Let's clear up the convoys. What do you say? Right? Should clear up the convoys so they can do their jobs. We'll get rid of that one for 3. We'll get rid of this one for 3. So we cleared up the Suez Canal convoy pipeline. I'm seriously thinking about moving the Western Indian Ocean convoy back towards England because I don't really have any use for it down here at this point. We're never going to go after Iraq. We don't need it. I've got an American convoy that I'm probably going to get rid of fairly soon as far as moving it to go do something more useful. Yeah, I think I'm going to clear up the British convoys here because now I can do 2 on each of them every turn and clear them for 6 production points. And that keeps all 4 of my guys in supply. Then if I need to supply the garrisons, I have a spare convoy to use that on. So yeah, we're going to do it that way. So go to replacements for those Soviets. They're fairly straightforward. They've got 14. They're going to do 12 on their airplanes. And that takes care of that. Then there's no upgrades yet. I think the Russians will get some near a couple of turns. The Axis, I don't think anybody but the Russians have mobilization, right? Yep, only the Russians have mobilization. So we'll just go straight to their mobilization phase. The Russians are actually going to spend their 2. They're going to bring in a couple infantry since they lost that shock army. They're going to bring in 2 infantry. I'm going to just put them right here for now. Figure out where I'm going to put them in the front. I think I'm going to drop 1 in Moscow just because I'm paranoid. I'm Russian. I'm paranoid. So it has to go in Moscow. And then the other one, I'm really debating on where it needs to go. I could drop it in Rostov, but that defeats the whole purpose of what I was doing, giving myself a retreat route. I could drop it in Orel, and then I limit my retreat routes for these other units. So I'm thinking I'm going to put it back here in Varennes, however it's pronounced, just so that I have an extra infantry unit to kind of plug the hole when the hole forms. That's kind of the idea here, is plug the holes when the holes form. And then I will have next turn, when we get to, where's my faction card? Next turn, the shock army will be in the mobilization, so I'll be able to build him and 2 other infantry units to fill in the hole on June. And then on the turn track, I also get some armored units that I could possibly throw in the line if I have enough production points. And I'll get a Lend-Lease, so I'll get an extra 2 production points next turn. So I'll be up to like 26 or something like that. So I should have enough to defend myself through 1942, hopefully. We'll see, won't we? Okay, that is mobilization phase for the Russians. Diplomacy phase, nobody's talking, we're all fighting. They haven't conquered Germany yet, so the war isn't over yet, nor the game. And the end of turn phase, faction card down here. What do the Germans get? Just take this stack and put it over here. Can't do that. Okay, what do the Germans get? They get tanks marker. Oh, they get their ground support back, so now they have 2 of them. Oh, they get an infantry unit to put in the mobilization box. I go ahead and flip him right away so I don't forget. Oh, I got one of my submarines back. Yay, I can try and fight the British off. Oh, I got a heavy artillery. Those are nice when you're assaulting something. Don't know that I'm going to be assaulting much. The most important counter in the game for the Germans is the economic reforms. The one that's on the turn track goes 6 turns into the future. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then after that first one, this has been errated. After that first placement of 6 turns ahead, every time it moves thereafter, it moves at 4 turns. So I get 1 more in December. I get 1 here in June, 1 in December. And then I'll get 3 through 1943, and I'll get 3 more through 1944. So that means I'll end up with 8 by the end of 44. And the 9th one shows up in April. So I actually have enough with extra factories. I end up with enough production points to at least make a fight of it at the end of the war. Before, when they only came in every 6 turns, the Germans would be down to the point where you could just run around them because they didn't have enough units to even garrison their cities and things like that. So I've loved this change to the economic reforms. I think it was long overdue. It was just a little bit too much on the German economy to deal with that. So this one, where's my national tracks? Hello, national tracks, come up. There we go. And this, I can't grab the counter. So this goes on the extra factories stack for the Germans. They have something there now too. Yay. Now let's do the Western Allies. Here's the Russian. See if I can do this. I think those are the Russian tanks markers. Yep, they were the Russian tanks markers. Yay, good boy. This is the British tanks markers. I'll come down here. They got their ultra back right away, so they can counter the German subs. And the British get a Lend-Lease. Yay for them. So their Lend-Lease thing goes up by 1. And then this goes 6 turns down the track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To December. Oh, and the Russians get a Lend-Lease. So that'll go down there, and they get another factory. So their factory, extra factories marker goes up 1. So everybody's economy is doing better here in the middle of the war. And then the Russians get 3 armored counters in their mobilization box. They also get to move the shock army into here. And as is my habit, I go ahead and flip full strength units that I have to bring in reduced, just so I don't have to remember to flip them when I buy them. I can just grab them and throw them on the board. That's me. You don't need to do it that way. I just find that convenient. And that is the end of turn phase. So we will begin next time with June. One of the things that we know that will happen next time is based on the weather track and the player aid card. In June, there's only 2 choices for the cold zone, and it was poor last time, so it will be fair in the cold zone next time. In the mild zone, it was fair this time, so it's going to be poor in June. And in the warm zone, the same thing. It's going to be poor weather. So the Italian supply will be easier to deal with in poor weather next turn. But the Force H will be coming back. You can almost guarantee it because the British are going to have extra production. So that is the May 1942 turn. Get to my ending screen position, maybe. There we go. So this has been May 1942 of Unconditional Surrender, me, myself, and I playthrough of the main event. I am Dren608. Please leave comments, what you like, what you don't like, so I can improve these videos. If you like what you see, please subscribe so that you don't miss any more episodes going forward. And we will see you next time at the beginning of June 1942, the second German offensive into Russia. Bye-bye.